approaching the T-minus 1 minute mark. T-minus 1 minute, T-minus 1 minute, and counting. Now in the final minute of our countdown. At the 30-second mark, swing arm number 1 will retract. T-minus 50 seconds. As we pass the T-minus 50-second mark, the power transfer takes place. First stage, second stage, third stage, and the instrument unit going to internal power. T-minus 37 seconds, and our count continues to go well. We'll be looking for an ignition of those 5 first stage engines at the T-minus 8.9 second mark. We've passed T-minus 30, T-minus 25 seconds and counting, and Apollo 13 is go. T-minus 20 seconds, T-minus 20 seconds and counting. 17, guidance release, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8. Ignition sequence has started. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. We have commit and we have liftoff at 2:13.
Hi, and welcome back to the Home Service Rocket Podcast, where we dive into real, effective strategies to grow your home service businesses. I'm Ryan Schrader, and thank you for being part of this community. The best way that you can support us here is to help extend our reach to more home service businesses, and that's by watching every video, hitting the like button, and commenting, leaving anything in the comments wherever you're tuning in. Today we are meeting and talking with Clinton James of Water Restoration Marketing. They are the Google Ads experts in the damage restoration space. So we're going to talk about how to get the most out of your Google Ads today. And let's go ahead and jump right in. Hey, Clinton, how are you today?
I'm doing all right, Ryan. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Really excited to just talk to you about Google Ads. I know for a lot of people, it's kind of that, it's that monster that they're trying to tackle and trying to understand the best things that are working in the industry right now. So I look forward to just kind of getting into your head and learning about what you guys are the expert at. So tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me about your company and how you guys serve home service companies.
So me personally, I've been in emergency services marketing for probably about 15 years now. Didn't start in restoration, took a kind of a different path, everything from siding to roofing. But about 7 years ago, we kind of niched down and started working exclusively with water restoration companies across the country. So what our agency does right now is we generate calls from homeowners, business owners that have some kind of emergency water damage going on at the time. And as you mentioned before, the way we generate those calls is we manage Google AdWord campaigns. We do pay-per-click for whatever client we're working with in that city or that service area. So
that's awesome. How many clients do you have? How many customers do you guys have across the country right now?
Gosh, probably somewhere between 120 and 130 clients so far.
Wow. Okay. So you guys know what you're doing. You guys are managing ads all across the country. I'm sure rural areas, extremely populated areas. So
we do. We're in some of the most competitive markets in the country right now. We probably manage, $5 million plus a year in pay-per-click ad spend.
Wow. Well, we're glad to be talking with you. I'm sure there's a lot people can learn. So obviously talking specifically about damage restoration companies, and that's who you guys serve. But I think a lot of these strategies are applicable for any home service business, really, right? Like
absolutely
some of the basics. So what really makes Google Ads essential for the damage restoration industry, right? And where do you typically start?
Well, for us, Google Ads is we like Google Ads for two reasons in the emergency services space for home services. One is speed, right? Because we can quickly deploy a PPC campaign for a new client, a restoration company, in less than a week. And we know once that campaign is running, our clients are going to get calls, they're going to get site visits, and they're going to get jobs starting the very first month, right? So there's less of a ramp up period than, organic SEO or something like that.
Absolutely.
And a lot of these restoration companies, they're ready to take on jobs yesterday. So speed to implement is very important. The second thing is if you notice ads, they're traditionally at the top of the page. And that's really important for the kind of calls that we're trying to generate for our clients. We focus on emergency water damage. So if you can imagine being in the shoes of a homeowner or a business owner, they come in and they're standing in 2 inches of water. If they do a search, whether it's on their phone, their tablet, their computer, they're literally clicking on the links at the very top of the page. They're not making it down necessarily to sometimes the maps, but they're certainly not getting all the way down to the organic listings there. So speed and placement when it comes to a Google search.
That makes sense. Yeah. If you're, like you said, standing there, water up to your ankles, you're not looking to do a ton of research. You're going to click on the first one that comes up, and
100%.
I imagine, can you tell us a little bit about what that path looks like? What is that next step typically that, you guys drive that user to do? Where does that ad go?
So for us, it's really about high converting landing pages. So unlike a lot of folks out there, we do not use any of our clients' websites as part of these campaigns, because traditionally our clients, even though they'll have a page on their website dedicated to water damage, it's one of many services that they highlight on their website. They probably have a navigation bar that has a dozen buttons on it, right? And for me, anybody that's in the middle of a water damage emergency, everything else on that page is complete white noise. So we create landing pages that are specific to not only water damage services, but we use some technologies that allow us to make the restoration company that we work with look hyper specific in terms of where they're located, right? And then the second thing is we want to create content, hero images, the language on the page to speak to the specific type of water damage that person's experiencing in that moment.
Gotcha. So it's not just water damage in general. It's very specific. I'm sure.
No, you definitely want to be specific, right? Because, there's definitely lots of different type of water damage that a homeowner or a business owner can be experiencing. So what we want to do is within 10 seconds of them landing on that landing page, they know that you are local to their service area and that for lack of a better term, that your specialty is exactly what type of water damage that a person's experiencing in that moment there. That way it becomes a no-brainer. The only call to action on there is going to be a phone number, because all we're in the business of doing is generating phone calls from these homeowners and business owners that have water damage. We avoid chatbots. We avoid forms. Because any client that has ever worked with me will tell you the same thing, in my opinion, on forms for emergency services. If somebody has time to fill out a form and wait for you to call them back, they are probably not in the middle of a water damage emergency. And that's just not the kind of lead that we're trying to generate for our clients.
That makes complete sense. Yeah. They want to get a hold of somebody right now, in the moment. They're not like, let me fill out this form and see, is it going to be an hour? Is it going to be 24 hours before I hear back from somebody?
Yeah, exactly.
That makes complete sense. Awesome. You mentioned you're talking about those keywords. What are you doing to pinpoint those effective keywords? Is it really just pretty generic across all markets? I imagine, flooded basements is a big one, but in some markets you don't even have basements.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
The keywords that we use in our campaigns are definitely specific to that part of the country and the type of water damage that those folks experience. For us, actually, experience is how we got to the keywords that we use in each one of these markets. So we have been running these campaigns for over 7 years now. And the good thing about our agency is we've tracked everything, right? We know the keyword groups that generated calls. Our system actually records phone calls. Our team goes in and listens to those calls after they're done. And then we actually take it a step further in that we check in with clients every 2 weeks. And these are scheduled check-in calls to find out what actually happened when that technician went out to that house that had water damage from one of our leads. Did you actually write business? So we've been able to take what used to be a real long list of keywords. We've really been able to whittle that thing down to the bare minimum. That way, we're only investing our clients' ad spend in keywords and search terms that we know from data have a real high likelihood of turning into site visits and jobs.
That's so important. That's so important. And like you said, it's really, it is about understanding your local market and understanding what kinds of jobs are getting called there. Would you say for a company that's maybe getting into the Google Ads game that they should really focus on those keywords that are around, the calls they get most? Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. You should definitely identify what types of water damage that your traditional client is experiencing, right? And that
Mhm.
should be your primary focus, identifying what keyword groups speak to that specific type of water damage. You also have to remember, even though water damage is not a seasonal business, because there's all types of things that can generate water damage in a home or a business, you do have to be willing to shift the focus of your ad spend on different keywords during different times of the year, right? Depending on
Mm.
where you're at in the country there. So, yeah, focus on the services that you know are specific to your service area, and focus on what time of the year it is, so that you're spending money on search terms that are relevant to the type of water damage that people are experiencing in that time of the year.
That's so important too. I think a lot of people just would like set it and forget it. Like, this is the ad I'm running all year
There's a lot of
long.
agencies that set it and forget it. And that's one of the things that that restoration companies, or really home services businesses,
Mhm.
should really keep an eye out for. You want somebody actively managing that pay-per-click campaign, because it's not cheap, right? You want to make sure that somebody is keeping an eye on that, looking at the keyword groups, looking at what calls are actually turning into jobs. There's just a lot of data that goes into making sure that you're getting the most bang for your buck when it comes to ad spend.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah. There's a lot. It's always, as you get into it, it's always gets so much deeper too. There's always another layer to unfold. And you're like, geez, I didn't realize this was so complex. I hear that all the time about ads and Google ads and Facebook ads. And yeah. Um, so w- what are some of there's a lot of different Google ads tools, display ads and search ads and, all those different ones. What are the most beneficial features, the Google ads kind of tools for
So
people?
traditionally, we stay away from all ad extensions, right? Because again, our core focus with that ad is just to drive traffic to that landing page. That landing page, while it's not a replacement for your website, it's got one job, and that's to build enough trust and authority with that person looking at it to where they pick up the phone and call the restoration company there. So we avoid stuff like that. For me, it's definitely wasted money. There's no need for retargeting or anything like that across other platforms there, because again, these people are in the middle of a water damage emergency. It's not
Yeah,
like they're going to not have that, or need that service, a day from then. So that we just
totally.
focus specifically on driving traffic to those high converting landing pages that we have.
That's awesome. And obviously uh, that means they're not spending money on those other ads because, if you have a set budget and you're using retargeting and you're using this and you're using that, your budget's going to all those different things rather than, to your point, the one thing that is going to be the most effective.
100%. If you're providing other home services like, carpet cleaning, painting, things like that, then yeah, I absolutely understand the value of those. But
Mhm.
because of our niche and our focus being water damage, it doesn't make good sense to waste ad spend like that.
Totally. Totally. I think I keep pushing on that point because I think a lot of people make the mistake of like, well, I want to do all these keywords and I want to be in all these areas and I can do ads on all these platforms. Yeah, let's do it. It's like you're spreading yourself too thin at that point. It's
Yeah.
not necessarily best to cast a wide net. It's good to
I,
shoot a laser.
It's funny you mentioned this. I literally was just having a conversation with one of our clients last week. We're very, very specific in the service that we offer. So a
Mhm.
lot of our clients will use other companies for website design, search engine optimization, social media, stuff like that. And somehow his social media agency had convinced him that he should invest literally thousands of dollars a month in running Facebook ads for emergency services. And this guy is older than I am. And I literally sat him down on a Zoom call and I said, hey, like I'm 44. You're probably 10 years my senior. Between the two of us, we do not have any friends in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. So if they came home to a busted water pipe, the last thing they're thinking about is jumping on Facebook or Instagram to find a contractor there.
Oh yeah.
So that's why we stick to Google. We've been doing it for the last 7 years. That's where people go. Maybe our children's children might rely on social media for stuff like that, but that's just
Yeah.
not the way it is right now. So.
Yeah, exactly. Well, not a lot of 20-year-olds are owning homes right now either. So even if
Yeah,
that is how they're finding it, they're not, They're not
Yeah,
ideal marketing.
for other services, completely understand the appeal, and I also understand social media as a branding exercise for restoration companies there, but it's not a place that I would invest a lot of money in ad spend to try to generate emergency water jobs. Just that's not where the business is going to come from.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, Now, one of the things that I think, a lot of people struggle with, like we talk about, is just the mistakes, the common mistakes that companies are out there making. And a lot of these people are making the same mistakes. What are those common pitfalls that people come to you and they're like, I'm struggling with my Google ads. Well, this is exactly what you're doing wrong. What are some of those pitfalls that you're seeing, people do, or some of the big mistakes they're making?
Keyword planners. A lot of people by default will use the tools that Google provides them to help decide what words they're going to spend money on in order to make the phone ring. And while Google is, a great resource for folks as a search engine, people have to remember Google's not in the business of getting you jobs. Google ultimately is in the business of selling you clicks. So every piece of data that they provide somebody setting up that PPC account, it's just all geared towards getting you to waste a bunch of money on a bunch of words that may or may not generate any business for you, right?
Mhm.
So the advantage that we have is just experience, right? So we've actually used we've used those different keywords. We've wasted ad spend years ago on keywords that just aren't ultimately effective. Stay away from industry terminology, mitigation, remediation, because your average homeowner, your average business owner, that's not even how they talk when they describe water damage. But Google is going to show you a bunch of search traffic based on those keywords, right? Because there's plenty of people using those keywords to do searches, and you're going to get clicks and you're going to get phone calls, but they're not going to be from homeowners in the middle of water damage. They're going to be from somebody calling to try to sell you a truck wrap or a dehue or an air mover or embroidered polos for your technicians, right? So you're spending all this money on ads trying to make the phone ring with jobs, and half the calls coming in are people trying to sell you something. So focusing on spending money on the right keywords, that's key. And then you also have to make sure you've got a really robust negative keyword list, because sometimes that's equally as important as the words that you're spending the money on.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit more about negative keywords? I imagine some of the people that are going to see this aren't going to be very, what's the word I'm looking for? Just familiar with that term or what that means.
Let's say you have some kid that goes out on the ocean and splashes around in the water for 2 hours, and he forgets he's got his cell phone in his back pocket. So what does he do when he gets home? He hops on mom's computer and does a search, water damage, iPhone, and then the city name. Well, water damage and the city name, those might be great keywords, but the minute that he puts a word like iPhone in that search term, you don't even want your ads to show up, right? Because nowadays people don't read the ad copy before they click the link. They just click the link, and they're going to go to your landing page and they're going to say, oh, this isn't what I'm looking for. They hit the back button and they go to the next one, right? Well, unfortunately, Google doesn't care. Google's still going to charge you for that click, right? So we've got probably 8,000 plus what we call negative keywords. So every type of cell phone you can think of out there, makes and models of vehicles, different types of appliances and electronics and wedding dresses and photo albums, basically anything that can experience water damage that's not a home or a business. It's in that list of negative keywords. And we use that thing like a filter. That way, if any of those words are part of that search term, our clients' ads don't even show up. Because what I ultimately don't want to do is have my clients spending their money on clicks and getting phone calls from people that are looking for something that's kind of like what they do, but not at all what they do, if that makes sense.
Oh, 100%. 100%. I think, that's great advice, because a lot of people would say like, well, if somebody's searching for water damage on, this, it might mean they have water damage. No, that's a waste of your money. That's a waste of your time. Because where my head goes is if somebody is typing in, water damage for, you said like a wedding dress, that is the biggest thing that they are having water damage with. It's not that room or their basement, because if it was the basement, they'd be looking for basement, and the wedding dress would be
The home would
a
definitely
later
take
thought.
priority for them for sure.
Exactly. It's that priority list. So that makes a lot of sense. I think that's really helpful to, any of those home service companies that are out there to think about what are what are those searches that you want to be ranking for, and what are those alternative ones that might not, but are very similar, and then identifying those keywords. That's a great strategy.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. So what would be kind of your best advice, for a company that's getting started on Google Ads, or maybe they've been running Google Ads and they're not seeing the placement that they want. They're not seeing maybe the conversions on their ads. I think there's a few different spots there, like placement, conversions, and then getting that phone call. You talked a little bit about that, the landing pages. So I think but how do we get better placement? How do we get better conversions on the ads themselves typically?
So, your overall ad score is going to be relevant, not only to placement, but what your overall cost per click is going to be. For restoration companies that are getting into the space of running pay-per-click or doing Google ads, the first thing that I would tell them is stop and assess yourself. Are you really the person that should be sitting there creating and managing this pay-per-click campaign for your business? Because you're literally going to be spending thousands of dollars. And are you the right person to manage that ad spend budget in what's a really, really complicated platform? Right? Google makes it real easy for you to spend money with them. But again, it's not just as simple as set it and forget it, like we talked about before. I would encourage them to find, and it doesn't need to be my agency, but find somebody that has not only experience managing pay-per-click campaigns, but specifically has experience managing pay-per-click campaigns for the type of service that you want to promote. So if it's water restoration, make sure they've worked with other water restoration companies. Also make sure they've worked with other water restoration companies in your part of the country, because that's going to be very, very different, right? The campaign that I deploy in Florida, it's a lot different than the campaign I deploy in Texas or California or New York, for that matter there.
Totally.
So, this is not a DIY job, not as expensive as it is the average cost per click, the average cost to generate a call. It's not something that you necessarily want to DIY. If you do want to take on that and you want to become a Google Ads expert, great, more power to you. There's plenty of resources out there for you to learn. You're going to be learning on your dime, though, and understand that.
Yep.
So if you do it yourself, you're going to be learning on your own ad spend there. If you hire an agency that doesn't have any experience with restoration companies in your part of the country, they're going to be learning on your ad spend. And with the average cost per click continuing to rise, just makes more sense to have whoever is a professional that has experience doing it for you.
Yeah. Well, I think you bring up a great point. It's expensive, and cost per click, I know that's very dependent on what market, how many companies are there, what the population is, all that kind of stuff. But if you could be general on that, maybe talk about what you're seeing in some particular markets, if that's possible. But what kind of minimum budget should people be looking at? And then what's a typical budget for somebody who's like, I need to generate, 10 phone calls a week?
Yeah, so that's you're going to have a pretty big budget for something like that. Traditionally, we see across the entire country, the average cost per click ranges so dramatically. In some markets, it might be $35 to $50 per click.
Wow.
In other markets, it might be even higher than that, right? Not every click is going to turn into a call. So our average cost to generate a call might be anywhere from $150 to $250, right? Still cheaper than the alternatives that you pay per call with, but it's expensive. With that being said, when we bring on a new client, we traditionally work with clients that have a minimum service area population of at least 500,000 to 1 million. So we would traditionally start them with the minimum budget would be $2,000 per month, right? Anything less than that, you don't have enough data, and it's kind of going to be a crapshoot for you every month there. So
yeah. Well, like you said, if you're doing 2,000 and it's $50 a click, and I know restoration is one of those that's one of the most competitive across home service.
It definitely is. It definitely is. I know some folks in the legal community will argue that their clicks are more expensive. But as far as home services go, the cost per click for water restoration is probably at the very top of home services.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're doing $50 a click, for $1,000, you're going to get 20 clicks.
There you go.
And if you need, so it's easy to do the math there, right? And if it takes 3 to 5 clicks to get a call, you're really not getting, you're maybe getting 4 calls for $1,000. You're in one of those super competitive markets.
We've got benchmarks for our clients, and what we're really transparent with everybody about is the data, right? So we update that data on a regular basis so that when we bring on a new client, we can set what we think is pretty realistic expectations during the first 30, 60, 90 days as we ramp them up. For us, the goal is to start with a fairly modest ad spend budget. Let us get the campaign dialed in. Let us put some jobs in your back pocket. And then once our clients are traditionally happy with the quality of the calls and the ROI, that's when we increase the ad spend budget from there. I mean, we've got clients that spend, 5 figures pretty consistently a month on just pay-per-click, not counting any of the other digital marketing that they're doing.
That makes a ton of sense. So you're really, when they're going to be spending more money, it's going to be because we know it's driving results, right?
Yeah, that's one of my pet peeves in the digital marketing space is a lot of these agencies will bring on a client that and just convince them that right out of the gate they need to be spending these huge numbers in terms of ad spend. We don't take that strategy. Again, there is some dialing in of a new campaign that happens over the first couple months there. You're getting results, but there's still some things that we're optimizing for. So we'd rather start with a modest ad spend. It gives our clients an opportunity to kind of see what we do. And usually once they're happy with the quality of the calls and the ROI, our clients are calling us to increase the ad spend budget before we have to call them.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's awesome. And I mean, the confidence then at that point to spend that extra money, to scale up, to invest in their business as well, to say like, all right, I know we're going to get these extra jobs when we ramp up this budget, so I can hire so-and-so, so I can get that extra truck.
I was just talking to a restoration company out of Illinois, and their average ticket on a mitigation for a residential water job is approaching $10,000.
Yeah.
Right. So there's plenty of money to be made, and the margins on mitigation are super high.
Yes.
But again, you want to be responsible with your ad spend and just make sure you're getting a good ROI, whoever's managing that campaign for you.
Definitely. Well, I definitely have learned a lot. So I imagine some of our home service business owners, restoration company, professionals that are going to watch this are really going to just learn a lot about, how this works, how it's going to drive their business forward. Where can people find you, find your company, start a conversation with you?
Well, if you're a restoration company that specifically water restoration that's looking to get work, you can start our website, www.waterrestorationmarketing.net. So it's a mouthful. I understand that. Waterrestorationmarketing.net. My name's Clinton James. You can find me on most platforms, Facebook and whatnot there. So we've been doing this a long time. I'd like to think we've gotten pretty good at it at this point. So
well, you clearly are an expert. You clearly have the experience. You've spent that time learning what works and what doesn't. I think that's also the big part, so that you can replicate that. You have a process.
And the crazy part is, even with all of the experience and all the data we have, not every one of our campaigns knocks it out of the park every single month. There are some ebbs and flows, just like any type of marketing there, right? But consistently, our clients that are with us, they consistently see a good ROI. That's why we've been able to scale up to where we're at. And we're looking to grow even more. So if you're a water restoration company out there that needs to get more, high value water jobs, then reach out to us.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today. This has been extremely valuable, and hopefully everybody out there that watches this found this very valuable. If you have any questions for Clinton or for myself, please leave them in the comments. Reach out to Clinton and to his team over at Water Damage Restoration, and they'll be happy to take care of you. But remember to leave a comment, leave a like, and we'll see you on the next Home Service Rocket Podcast. Thanks again, Clinton.
Thanks for having me on, Ryan.
See you guys.
Team Dada. We have commit and we have liftoff at 2:13.